Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're using this test rig and I'm going to show you guys this DRR-S, Digital Regulator Rectifier. I'm going to show you guys exactly what it comes with and how to install it, so stick around. Alright guys, let's go ahead and open up the DRR-S and we can go ahead and get this thing mounted on the display. Here we have the actual regulator rectifier unit. Plug on that side. We will get that about right there. And what comes with every regulator rectifier kit is everything you need to get it installed on your motorcycle. So, we have some mounting hardware. We have some connectors for your wiring. We have some heat shrink. And of course we have a harness section. This of course plugs directly into here and you wire this into your bike. Now this is the DRR-S, so it has a sensing wire that is going to be our red with white, but you can find all of the information as far as like wiring diagrams, install manuals and stuff on the website. They're all provided with everything that you purchase from here. So this, I'm gonna go ahead and open up. We'll get it mounted up on the display here. This is the supplied harness for the regulator rectifier. Of course, it just plugs in. So real quick, let's take a look at the wiring for the DRR-S. The three wires here, the orange, purple, and pink, these are going to go directly to your stator with the AC output wires. The red is your DC output, and this is going to either go directly to your battery or a starter solenoid, depending on how you want to have it wired. And all of that is marked within the included instruction manual here, or the install guide. Your black wires, of course, ground. Now on some Hondas, a lot of times you're going to see black as 12 volts, so just make sure you don't get this confused. But again, this is exactly why we provide a clear wiring diagram, because we intend to have you guys install this on your own custom bike. And then of course the sensing wire, as I mentioned, is the red with white stripe. This one is actually going to go either to your X21 if you're using that, that's actually going to be a data communication line in there, or just to the on position on your ignition switch. So really straightforward, really easy. But like I've mentioned, always reference your wiring diagram here, and of course every product that we sell, whether it be the DRR-F, you have a separate wiring diagram. All the stuff is going to play together and you're going to see exactly how it all goes together, so there's no confusion. Alright, continuing on the install for the DRR-S, I'm going to go ahead and do the 3 AC wires, and to do that I'm going to join these with the stator with the included butt connectors here. So these are actually a double crimp. You guys might not have the correct crimpers for these, and that's okay. You can always solder them and stuff, and that'll be a good opportunity for me to show you guys my soldering technique on this wire. So if you don't have a double barrel crimper, stick around and I'll show you guys how to do that after these wires. Now to start off, what I've done is I've kind of relaxed these wires into shape with the heat gun, so they're going to kind of naturally bend where I want them. Most of the time that won't be an issue, but if it is, that's just a little trick. I've got these kind of ran in a nice attractive way here, nice and clean, nothing's going to be touching. So I can go ahead and start trimming these things to length. Now another tip, we're not using this tip right now, but if you had a lot of wires all needing a solder joint or a butt connector, you would actually cut them at different lengths. That way you stagger where the connection is to save the actual size of the harness to keep it clean. But in this instance, you know, we're just showcasing how this all goes together. Now, before I strip these, I'm going to go ahead and put my heat shrink on. That way it's just easier to keep these on the wire. And you don't want to strip too much off of these for a double crimp. We're going to try to join these a little bit in the middle, but we need to have enough for the cable sheathing to have a crimp over it to lock it in place. Now before I crimp this, here are my double barrel crimpers that I use. So they're getting well aged at this point. But you're going to do a series of 2 crimps, so one in the middle and then one on the outside. So for this, we're just going to use the number 4 slot on here. I think that's going to be sufficient. But line it up, crimp it down, just take your time. These 3 are done. Alright, next up for the wiring, we're going to work on the actual DC output wire from here. Now this one, if you're using a solenoid, this is going to go to part of your solenoid here. If you're using the NWT one that I provide, it's going to go to the right side of the plug. You can see this on the actual solenoid installation video or looking at the solenoid wiring install manual. Now as I mentioned, I'm going to do a solder joint for these 2. So I'm going to work on kind of getting this routed how I want, make it look clean, figure out where I would like my solder joint to be. There's no bend right here. I think that would be the most convenient, most attractive. Okay, I think that's about where I'd want it. Right about where my thumb is. So I'm going to trim the solenoid wire a little long here. And then off the other end, I'm going to use about 1 inch overlap just as a start. Cut the other wire. And then from here, we'll strip the wires back and I'll show you my soldering method. Alright, now we have everything in place here. Got these wires stripped. Of course, you want to have them stripped about the same exact length. And then I already have my heat shrink on one side, and this is some double wall, like marine grade heat shrink, so it's weatherproof. Now, what I do next is I kind of fan out the individual strands without like kinking them or anything like that. Start fanning them out. And do that on both sides. Fan them evenly here. See that? And then put them together like that so they overlap, and you can see how the wire kind of makes an X pattern. So you take one side and kind of grab it, pull it one way, start twisting them in opposite directions. It's gonna look crappy right now because there's wire overlapping the insulation. So what I do is you carefully kind of start pulling apart, keep tightening it, pull it apart, keep tightening it until you have nothing overhanging the insulation. So go a little tiny bit further. Alright, so we have nothing overhanging right now. At this point, we're ready to solder. So what I do, get some paste flux here, coat a little bit of it. And soldering itself is kind of it can be kind of tricky, and it's just you trying to find a balance of making it hot enough to wet the solder out. That way you don't have a cold solder joint, because that's basically worse than nothing at all. Get this thing kind of held in place. And I'm letting my solder gun heat up right now. And I'm only going to start applying heat to that when this is properly hot. Because if you hold this on here too long, it can melt the insulation. Alright, so that's nice and hot. Nice and shiny, good coverage. Remove heat. And we've avoided melting any of the insulation. We have solder all the way around, so that's a good solder joint. Having a wet sponge, with your soldering iron to clean it off, makes it a lot easier to use. And from here, I'm just going to take my heat shrink. And with the adhesive lined heat shrink, you can go pretty far, but you'll look for the adhesive to start coming out at the very end. That's when you know it's kind of compressed enough. That circuit's done. Now for the last wires on the DRR-S, we have our ground wire, that's the black wire. I have that simply following my ground paths, and that's going to ground here, where my common point is for the chassis. And then beyond that, we have the sensing wire. And this is the red with the white stripe. You have two options here. We're using an X21 in this case, so this is going to tie in to the main power supply. And this is like a data communication cable basically, so this is where it's going to be sensing the most accurate power consumption is right here on the X21. Now, if you don't have an X21, what you're going to do is wire this to the key, so basically where your main power is going to be drawn from here. And the sensing wire is not like a power output type wire. What this is doing is reading how much power consumption is going on at any given time, and what that does is lets it dictate how much power to output into the system. And here we are, all finished up. We have the sensing wire ran up, around, back down, and that's tied into the X21 right here. You guys will see a full X21 install video next. This test rig is super handy in showcasing how everything works. So stick around because you don't want to miss out on this product. Alright everybody, that is going to conclude the overview and installation of the DRR-S digital regulator rectifier that I offer. Hopefully this helps shed some light on how to install the product, and if you need to go a step further, if you need any more information, definitely please review the installation manuals that are available on the website. So anyway, I hope this one was informative for you guys, but if you have any questions, leave them below. Feel free to contact me any way you can. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.